You grew up in a dairy farm in
I
Massachusetts,
did.
and but also your father died, I think, when you were three in World War II.
Really, two. He
Two,
died when I was two,
two
but
years old.
his they didn't report his death until a year later. So it's between two and three. I
Okay.
didn't see him in the last year of his life.
And yet one of your godparents was one of the Rockefellers. So you had this
David
David
Rockefeller.
Rockefeller. So you had this strange existence where you're milking cows on one hand, and then you're hanging out on Fifth Avenue
No,
or at these estates. Talk to me about that upbringing.
146 East,
East 56.
48.
Is that
Yeah.
Rockefeller Plaza, or you go?
No,
That was
no,
her home address.
that's David's
David's
house.
house.
Yeah.
Okay. What's it like? How did that change you as a young man to grow up in these two realities?
Maybe it gave me a more independent mind. I mean, I definitely knew what life was like in in real poverty. I mean, my this dairy farming in the Berkshires was not a lucrative pursuit. But, well, while I was growing up, and my stepfather, who was also my father's first cousin, had really difficult and life and had no extra money at all. And then I would go off to the Rockefellers for various vacations in Seal Harbor in Maine or in JY Ranch in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And I spent a year living in his house in New York at 146 East 48. You know, I'm really losing by anyway,
East
I lived
56
there for a year or
in New York
more.
City when you were
And
a teenager.
and I was, as a kid, I really was persuaded by David that I was a very special person who, because David admired my father, I think I can say as much as any person in the world. He thought my father was a genius, and he thought his loss in the Second World War was a tragedy. My father went to Germany with David after graduating from Harvard in 1936, and they saw Hitler speak and saw what was happening to Germany. And my father decided on the spot that war was inevitable with Nazi Germany. And he came back to the United States and began civilian flight training. And so he'd be prepared for what he thought would be a war that would be settled by air power. That was his insight, was that the war would be resolved by air power. And he was one of the first youngest members of the Council on Foreign Relations and debated with people like Allen Dulles about what to do about Germany. And he was a really remarkable man. And David treated me as kind of, without much evidence that I could detect, as embodying all the virtues of that he saw in my father, and that did really contribute to my life in a crucial way. And I like to think that my father might have liked a lot of my books. I saw a book that my father was writing before he died. He was writing an economics text, and I didn't see it until after I wrote Wealth and Poverty, but it was largely about intangible capital. And this is really an Austrian economic concept, which was central to all my books. And information theory of capitalism today really is based on intangible capital. Material resources are meaningless. They're all the atoms of the universe remain, and the question is how we deal with these atoms, and that's ideas, intangible capital that determines the future of the economy. And my father saw that in his 20s before he got into B-17 fighter bomber, a terrible plane that half of them never made it across the Atlantic, and he never made it across the Atlantic. He led a squadron of B-17s that, you know, was the brilliant idea of the designers that you wouldn't need any fighter planes if you had all the fighter capacity in the bombers. And the mixture of a fighter and a bomber in contriving this device, they neglected to make it capable of flying across the Atlantic in a storm. And that cost my father and thousands of other pilots their lives in the Atlantic until in the B-17. Also gave me an idea of what a kludge is, a technology that's badly designed can cost lives.